Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, Miraculous Ladybug, Star Wars Rebels, RWBY, and Adventure Time. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Delaney Stovall.
Yo.
Today, Delaney and I will be discussing the latest episode of RWBY, Beginning of the End, I believe Volume 3, Chapter 7. We cover RWBY every week here on the Overly Animated Podcast, and you can check us out at overlyanimated.com for all of our links. Spoilers for this episode and all of RWBY. I want to get right into it because you know this one's going to be long. Let's get into Beginning of the End. Delaney, what did you think?
I don't know if I can say if I liked it or didn't like it. I know I definitely didn't like the format of this episode.
Well, okay. Yeah.
I liked the voiceovers for a little bit. But as they continued, they got really annoying.
Did you think it was annoying or confusing? What was the main problem?
Both. Cause it's annoying because it's confusing.
Okay.
And I mean, that can be a purposeful thing, but then one, we haven't had an episode in a while, so then to have this episode and be like, I have no idea who's talking right now.
I definitely think the structure that they released the episodes in was bad. This episode should have aired immediately after last week's. It's clearly
Yes.
part 2 of it, right? So
yeah, they should have aired together. And I mean, I liked the content, what we got, and we're finally making. We'll talk about it.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'll try to influence you on this. So I have mixed feelings here, but it's about the show and not the episode. So last week, or whenever that aired, chapter 6, we kind of tore apart on this podcast, and it was really bad. But now we get what I think is perhaps the best episode of all of RWBY. And maybe I'll try to convince you on that. But this episode worked on, I think, every single level. I think that concerns about the format are warranted. My initial reaction, I've watched it twice. I'll probably need to watch it a few more times to it's that type of episode to fully have a grasp on whether it succeeded and what it's trying to do. I will say that if you watch it the second time and really try to figure out who's talking, then it's very easy.
Well, I will say I knew who was talking probably 85% of the time. It was just I have mixed feelings about how this works because of how Carmilla does this, and it gets really irritating when you do it more than once. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
if it's only been twice in the episode, I've been okay, but doing it as transitions, I understand from a stylistic standpoint why to do it, but then it's also irritating as a viewer. And when we have an episode that's only 16 minutes long, it's annoying.
This is a really risky format, using these ambiguous voiceovers in order to transition between your backstory exposition. However,
and especially with characters you don't know too well.
That's true. That changes this episode, but that is true. However, I believe that the show pulls it off largely due to the sound mixing, which I think is excellent. Everything sound-wise in this episode continues to be incredible.
Yes.
But props beyond Jeff Williams for this one, because it goes to the sound mixers and levelers and stuff like that. Okay, so here's what the episode does incredibly, because I just claim this is maybe the best episode in show history. Let me defend that. First, we get some of the best exposition we've had. I mean, the show has had some really good exposition, primarily in volume 1. But we haven't had in a while, and this is really necessary because we just kept complaining about how we know nothing about the villains, right? And this kind of solves that, really, except for Cinder.
Yeah.
But we're getting there with her, and they're clearly building up to something. We will check in on Big Bad Watch later on, because there's a voiceover that has to deal with that. This episode has an absolutely incredible fight scene with Amber and our three villains. I really loved it. I think it was excellently executed. Monty again was credited on this episode. I strongly believe that he was involved in this fight scene, which shows that he was really just working on the important stuff from the season early on. And this was probably in the structure of the season, this was probably the first thing they planned, this 2-episode arc. If you look at this specific episode, from the backstory, which I thought was really good and fascinating, and I thought it was like just enough. I thought the voiceovers were basically just clear enough while still being a little bit mysterious. I thought the fight scene was really incredible, and the ending was, of course, we're going back to something I disliked, so it's not going to be as good as the rest, but they kind of made something of it, and they. Like, if the conclusion was it was Neo, then I would have been really pissed, and the conclusion being it is Ember, I'm still pissed, but like slightly less pissed, because at least we knew she was there. Emerald, not Ember. Yeah, Emerald. And it's, on my outline I have Ember, Amber, Emerald, yeah, because Cinder is controlling embers and stuff like that. So I think that this being an explanation for last week is like slightly more satisfying, although there was absolutely no way we could have guessed this. Last week podcast we said it was definitely Neo and her illusions. Turns out there's another person who can do illusions in the group. At least they explained it here, and they give us a lot of backstory for what happened. And that being said, so like the positive is the content of the episode. The negative is we still have a context of really negative plot, really like unexciting plot going on. Like,
well, we also we found out background things, but what I don't like about this episode is, yes, I do enjoy seeing things I already know, but like if I had seen this maybe earlier, like we're just going back, like we haven't. The only new stuff we've learned is about the characters, which I'm very pleased about. I'm very glad to hear about background, about Emerald, especially Mercury, because all of a sudden I'm like, Mercury's really interesting now, as opposed to like he was just really boring in there and I didn't understand him. So this is really neat. But
are you sorry? Is the point that the exposition doesn't explain plot stuff?
What I'm saying is that like we got the exposition, which is great, but the other stuff that happened we already knew had happened. We just hadn't seen it.
Yeah. So everything this episode
everything that happened in the episode we knew.
Yeah. We heard about it last week. Correct. Yes. So I don't know. I don't really have a big problem.
So it's
with
nice
that.
to see it. The whole season we've been complaining there's no plot movement. And yeah, I really love the exposition in this episode. Yet, I mean, I love to hear more about, we've also been complaining about these villains. We don't know anything about them, but I don't know. Like for me, I can't say I definitely can't agree that this is the best episode of the entire show when I don't really like the structure that much. Like I can appreciate it for what it does, but I don't really like it. They do it too much. They do too much of the voice overlay, and especially when we have no plot movement. Like yes, we got to see what happened. They explained what we had seen last however long ago we watched, but we didn't find out anything really new. I mean, yes, I'm glad. I'm glad we know Emerald, that she can do and which also actually speaks to semblances and people can have identical semblances, which I think is a revolutionary concept. We had no idea. Granted, we don't know anything. Who's
the identical semblances?
Neo, right?
I think they're going for illusions in two different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neo can distort reality, whereas Emerald can only change a person's mind, right? So
yeah,
I think
she can produce.
So I guess those aren't really identical. Yeah, I think your criticisms of the episode structure do have to do with your enjoyment. I'm more skeptical of saying this episode is only okay because there's no movement. I think in the past this season there's been other episodes we've complained about where they're not doing anything, but we've still been able to enjoy them in a vacuum.
But it's annoying in that there really is no new content in this episode aside from the exposition of the characters. Everything that we saw, we already knew.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my response is I basically don't care right now. I think episode 6 changed a lot. So I'm not gonna say that I'm very happy with the show overall right now because the only reason this episode is okay is because episode 6 was terrible. The reason this coasts on the last episode.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really like this one. I was able to view this and, I think we disagree about the episode's quality in a vacuum as well. But I also think that we should try to evaluate this one on its own. That being said, well,
evaluating on its own, the episode's even worse than it is.
Well, why because you don't know what happened?
Well, it's because I do not like the structure of this episode. Okay. I do not if they had done the overlay maybe just twice, but and I understand doing it from a transitional standpoint, but it gets really irritating about the third time. I'm over it. And, like, I know why they're doing it, I appreciate it, but I don't like it. And I don't think it's a really good way to now, I will say, what I will give credit to this episode for is I'm really glad we had a villains-only episode. I think that's great. I think that's a wonderful thing, and we need more like them, because we have no idea what's going on. There's no sense of urgency. Like, what are we even watching?
Yeah, this was very needed, as we talked about.
I really like that part of it, but the episode itself, like, there's no new information. There's, like, I don't like the structure. The fight is great, and Emerald and Mercury, that's awesome, but it's kind of like, I would liken it to, obviously it's in a bit more of a serious nature, but it's not unlike Tales of Ba Sing Se from Avatar in that, like, it's episodic and, does that make sense?
It's a character driven, no, okay, so Tales of Ba Sing Se, like, couldn't focus on anything, and it didn't really have any character movement, and it also wasn't related to the plot at all, whereas this one is showing us plot things and has a lot of good character work and is pretty focused, I would say. Like, I think this episode I think, I know it moves around, but, like, I think it's pretty well focused in its structure. Like, you could argue, I think you're complaining about, like, the way the episode executes on, like, flashbacks and stuff like that. Like, you're irritated by the voiceover. I do think going from one to the other, and then to seeing what happens with Amber, like, I think it all makes sense, and I think it's very coherent.
No, it makes sense. I just don't like it. Like, I don't, like, and it's also very weird.
Okay.
Like, this is the only episode we have like this, and it's a very abrupt change. It's very, like, it doesn't
agree, but I think what we've been getting wasn't working, so I'm kind of happy to change. I think this is most similar to our Weiss and Winter episode, the latter one we got, which had some really great character work there among kind of no plot movement, and I was very happy with that one, and I'm even more happy with this one. I'll continue to.
I wouldn't say this character development.
It's not as good, yeah, but, like, it does overall. The episode, I think, is much better because it does much more interesting things overall. But I don't know. We disagree on the quality. I still heavily disagree on the use of the voiceovers and stuff like that. I do think if this was, like, a bigger budgeted show, like, we wouldn't do that every single time. But at the same time, I think they make it work. I understand like why they have to. I mean, because it would be. This episode would have taken like 3 episodes if they didn't do those. But let's get into some of the content here. Just to note, there was a post put out like yesterday, I think, by someone in the crew on Rooster Teeth saying basically content warning for younger audiences from here on out in RWBY, which is a little odd.
That's weird.
They're like, this has kind of been a kid's show. This is the show that we've heard that kids watch up until now. From here on out, it's going to be pretty dark, is what they said. And they kind of compare it to Avatar, the difference between season 1 and later on. They mention Harry Potter as well. They're like, as the show grows, so does the kind of content involved, which makes sense. And we'll be talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Likening it to Avatar and Harry Potter makes it, I think that it's not, like, it makes that's less weird.
What do you mean?
Because, I mean, if you read something like that and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to get bad. But no, if it's like Avatar and Harry Potter, it's not going to be like, I mean,
I do think this episode is much darker than the rest of the show, but not by like a lot.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we do have, Mercury and his dead dad there.
And we have a little bit more blood in this episode, and Violet, like, granted, the show's always violent, like, they're always fighting.
It's, there's, the end of the fight scene, I think, is rougher with, the stealing of the powers. This episode,
you can clearly tell when they're fighting that they're fighting, like, it's differently when you have RWBY and them fighting Grimm, because, like, Grimm aren't people, they're
just video game things, yeah.
Yeah, it's like video game, but this, there's a very more clear intent to kill. And especially since we know the background of like what they're doing, we especially know more the intent and what's going on. And that does make it darker. Like they're trying to kill her.
Let's talk about this for a second, because while I have basically zero complaints about the episode itself, I really don't like I still don't like the plot direction. My complaints from last episode still are very much the same. Like this episode, like what this post makes it seem like is what the last episode made seem like. Like, okay, we're just gonna introduce completely new plot elements and take the show in a different direction now. Which, if you're gonna compare this to Avatar and Harry Potter, that's not what those series do. They make a gradual change.
It gets darker as things progress.
It's hard to even notice where the difference is in both series. Like, there's a very slow transition, but what we're seeing here with RWBY is they said, okay, volume 3, episode 6, that's the beginning of RWBY part 2, where, things are gonna be darker, we're gonna introduce the maidens and completely new mythology, and that's just really, really a dumb narrative. And it's still really bad. We still have a really bad overall narrative with what's going on with the tournament. The tournament's irrelevant. Their plan is, as we see at the end of the episode, is to get more Grimm involved, which is still really dumb and doesn't make sense to me.
And now they've framed it in terms of a revolution of what?
Yeah, what are you? You need to present bigger objectives here. Also, we get the impression, we'll talk about this later, that Cinder's now working for someone. So that's dumb and bad. Like, you need to, we don't know why they're doing what they're doing. We don't really know what they're doing overall, and we don't even know who's doing it. So as much as this episode helps the people we see on camera, it doesn't give us enough overall plot. So, like, my viewpoint is I
think that's why I'm more down on this episode than you are, because this bothers me more than, like, the character stuff does not make up for this for me, if that makes sense.
I mean, so I think that everything I just said is problems with the season, and definitely not with this episode though. The only parts that are related to this episode are the ending scenes. Like, we see the continuation of last time, and I could see hating the ending scenes. I think they're fine. I think they're like the bare minimum, but I think the rest of the episode that doesn't involve the conclusion of, Yang and what happens with her, I think is brilliant. IMO again. So let's get into some specifics here. So there's a lot presented here that's kind of new and a lot to figure out with these voiceovers. I've kind of transcribed them all, and I'm pretty sure I have everything that happens down. So this episode is divided into segments. We have Cinder recruiting Emerald, we have Cinder recruiting Mercury, Cinder proposing something to Adam and the White Fang. We have the longest scene, which is attacking Amber, and then we have going back to Adam and the conclusion later. So let's take the segments. The first of all is the Emerald scene. What do you think of this concept of Emerald being kind of like this, I don't know how to describe her, street urchin, like this kind of, like
street
thief?
rat.
Yeah, street rat. Was this how you envisioned, Emerald's past when you thought of her?
No, but it's not really, it's not bad. You can't really see it. The thing is, you can't see anything in this episode as a shock, except possibly Mercury, because of course that's going to be surprising, is that you can't, like, we had no information on these characters. Like, we've just seen them as they are. There's no way to really predict, or even, like, I hadn't even thought about it, because, like, you just see the characters as they are, and as we get with RWBY a lot, we don't really get a lot of exposition. So it doesn't shock me. I think it's fine. I definitely enjoyed the dialogue, even though I hate the voiceover. I do enjoy, I enjoy everything that happened, and I think it's interesting. And I really enjoyed where it's like, you'll never be hungry again, and and we're seeing a lot of the way Cinder can manipulate people.
So, I agree with a lot of what you just said, like, involving, it's like, okay, Emerald's past, like, we just had no concept, of what she was, right? So it's
also very basic. Like, it's not really, like, it's nothing new.
The one thing that this episode does really well, and, like, I'm very proud of, it doing that, and I think this is some of the best character work that Miles and Carrie have been a part of, is it really reinforces and gives us a foundation to the relationships between Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury. I think that the dynamic between Emerald and Mercury is kind of rivals. Like, that felt right to me. That's like, okay, that fits with what we've seen. And kind of the deferential aspect both have towards Cinder, especially the "you'll never be hungry again" thing that you mentioned, that also feels really right. And I feel like this was just really perfect in reinforcing the small amounts of relationships that we've seen between the villains.
Yep, I definitely, and maybe we could even have a hint of maybe Emerald likes Cinder or something. Who knows? We still haven't found the mysterious gay character.
Yeah, that's true. Apparently it's the season, and the season's winding down.
Where's the gay?
So hashtag. Well, I called it something before. I don't remember what I called it. Anyways.
Well, we were gay watch for a while.
Hashtag RWBY Gay Watch 2K16 now. There you go.
Yep.
And the now is included in the hashtag. Okay, so yeah, so let's go over the voice. I'm gonna read the voiceovers. So the voiceovers transition into the scene. The first one we hear someone saying, "I want to be strong, I want to be feared, I want to be powerful." And then there's also stuff about Emerald stealing a ring. That part's pretty straightforward. But the ambiguous one is, I want to be strong, I want to be feared, I want to be powerful. I think this is Cinder talking.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I'm pretty sure this is like them stating her motivations. In the beginning, it's like, oh, is she monologuing or is she talking to someone?
It's a little like that's the part. Like that's part. Some of these voiceovers, it gets a little weird. Like it's like because then and it's really hard to have a transition when you have a black screen and they're just talking. Like there's no way to transition into a different part of the dialogue.
I suppose I would have preferred something on the screen. I kind of like love how they do multiple lines of dialogue interspersed in these transitions, though, like while still making it somewhat coherent.
Yeah.
Like to me, okay, so let me compare this to, and no spoilers, but Star Wars Force Awakens. There is a montage of backstory.
I know what you're talking about.
In that movie. It's very prominent, what I'm talking about. And like to me, that moves. I think they do it intentionally, but that moves really fast. The first time you watch it, you have no idea what happens, and like unless you're looking out for stuff, it's just really hard to tell what that montage is showing, what it means for the characters. I felt like this is a much more clearer like montage of backstory to me. Like the first time watching, I kind of understood what they're saying, and the second time watching, I completely got it 100%.
I mean, there's also is something like to the black screen that
it makes you focus on the voices, maybe.
Yeah, you're not distracted by whatever's going on.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe this is I do really, and like I feel like this is just, at least they're like trying to be ambitious about this. It's like, I like the show trying to do ambitious narrative. Like you're not gonna, how ambitious can you really be with the animation or anything like that? Like, I feel like this is the right direction for the show to be in, like ambitious narrative within the confines of your production. And I feel like this is perfect with
I will say, like, again, like I've been complaining about the whole time, but for me, it's just how many times it happened. Like, I don't really, like, if it, like, this is fine. Like, I enjoy this, like, narratively, and I want them to do interesting things with the narrative and how they're going to tell us it, and like they played with the animation when they were telling us the story of the new mythology.
Yeah, I mean, it happens 5 times. I don't necessarily disagree that it's too much, that it's a lot. I don't feel like strongly either way about that. I do think at the very least, each one tells us stuff, right? So that's,
it does.
Yeah. So I think this first one is maybe the most unnecessary, but I'm not sure. Like, we get stuff with the ring, but we also learn that exactly from the scene. Like, I think that's...
Yeah, like, it didn't... Yeah, I do agree that this one wasn't necessary.
And Cinder stating her motives was a good intro, like, but it's also doesn't tell us much. Okay, so, the thing is, Emerald, vanished the ring before the jeweler's eyes, and he smiled. And Emerald here, pretty thin with a long ponytail and her guns, right? What do you think of her design, the backstory? You're fine with all of it?
I mean, there's no real way to be upset with it aside from, like, it's very, like...
I think the complaint would be that it's not distinctive enough. This is a very tropey introduction. This is the typical orphan street rat, right? We see it all the time. So, I'm fine with it, though.
Like, it's fine. It works.
I liked their design, so it was okay.
It says a lot to Cinder, to Cinder's character, where she would recruit a street rat.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it says, but...
Well, I mean, it can either speak to, like, she's looking at abilities, she's good at seeing potential, or she does not care, she's desperate.
I think it's probably to show that she sees abilities. A complaint about this episode is that still leaves Cinder very ambiguous. This is like the most we've seen of Cinder, and still we know nothing about her, right? So...
she does hit Emerald.
She does hit Emerald, yes.
I mean, granted, again, that doesn't tell us, like, a whole lot, but, like, she hits Emerald, and, like, we actually haven't seen that before. Like, when the scenes we've had with him together, you wouldn't have predicted this outcome.
Very much a power dynamic, and, like, very, very clearly deferential to her, and we see the beginnings of why it is. The second voiceover, you will question everything you know and think Cinder to Emerald, this is impossible. I wish to take on an apprentice, says Cinder. This part's a little confusing, presumably talking to someone. He lives in the mountains with his son, like but if he's an assassin, so why would you want to take him on as an apprentice? I don't know.
Well, I guess unless she specifically meant his son, she meant Mercury.
No, I think it's clear based on the scene that they're looking for the father.
Yeah, I know, and that's the part that doesn't make any sense.
I wish to take on apprentice. He lives in the mountains with his son is a confusing set of lines. I don't understand in what context it makes sense. Like, I think she's fishing for information, and they're showing us that. But like, why would you fish for information about an assassin?
Because then, like, you wouldn't. I mean, especially like the connotations with the word apprentice, it'd be typically someone young. If it's a grown man who's an assassin, he doesn't really sound like apprentice material.
I don't understand that. I think maybe I'm missing something. So like,
well, I would take the only way for me that it would make sense is she is looking for Mercury, but she's like hiding her intentions, or I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it says apprentice, and then he says he lives with his son, right?
Well, granted, she could have just been finding information on the assassin because she knew he had a son. But I don't know.
I don't think it's that important. I think it's clear that she's fishing for info, and basically what the voiceovers do is we're interspersing the dynamics of the previous flashback with the setup for the new one.
And then she's like, "Do you have any? Are you anything like your father?" And it's like, this really doesn't make any sense.
So okay, let's finish the voiceover. Follow me, and you'll never be hungry again. Thank you. Right. So we talked about that. So yeah, we have Mercury with his dead father, Marcus. We see that his legs are bandaged in the scene. This is the playthrough with Mercury's legs is one I did not fully pick up on in the first viewing I had of this episode. We have here his legs are bandaged, and then later we have the reveal during the fight that he has robot legs. To me, I didn't see that. I saw later when in the final scene, it's obvious he does. But this is certain things I wonder if are a little too subtle. This is maybe one of them.
Well, no, I mean, I saw that he had metal legs during the fight. What I don't understand is the bandage legs. Like,
this is the problem. Like, why does his legs being burned lead to him losing his legs?
Well, because one, he's standing and his legs are bandaged.
He's standing, right? Yeah.
So either like he just got new prosthetic legs, which that would make sense. That's fine. Or they were so badly damaged at that point.
You have to assume that that's what the episode's going for, right? Is that his legs were damaged in the fire. But it doesn't really make sense.
But then he's standing. Granted, you can always be like kind of okay, and then find out later that no, it's irreparable damage.
I guess like they're burned and then they can't recover after that. Like they develop something afterwards.
I actually would take it more as like he maybe had. Like, I actually kind of took it because especially from watching How to Train Your Dragon and like how the bandages are and like how Hiccup treats his leg, I figured it was that he had prosthetic legs already, and they were maybe like poorly made prosthetics. Like maybe they were wooden, and like you have to bandage your legs if they're bad. Granted, it was also over his clothes. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I assume that is not what they are going for because that makes less sense, but it's possible.
Well, it makes more sense to me actually that he already has prosthetic legs, and they like get him better prosthetic legs because
maybe it makes more sense like logically. I think narratively that doesn't work as well.
Well, for me, the reason I mean logically is because how he's able to fight so well. Because it would take a while to get used to being able to fight with prosthetic legs. So.
I mean, he did defeat his fully assassin father. I do think the show is I don't know. It's just my interpretation. And sometimes we get too set in how we interpret media, but I do think it was trying to demonstrate that his legs got burned in the fire. But, we have, that was basically it. And he's pretty angry there. Thoughts on this as a backstory for Mercury? Like, I think this makes sense with what we've seen, him kind of just being this blob of competence, right? Like an assassin's son. I guess that makes sense.
And I think it is really interesting, like, especially like the prosthetic leg thing is just blew my mind simply because we were talking to him like he sacrificed his leg, let him break his leg, and that's what I think is the really interesting part, is that like that completely like solved that problem.
I agree, it's interesting. I wonder if it's
way.
good. I wonder if it's good.
Well,
It's almost, that was like one of the more interesting parts of the ending to me, is like, wow, Mercury is really dedicated, and like now even that's removed. So what did I even like from the end of last episode? Nothing.
Right?
You know, I guess that's what I am on that.
It's definitely interesting, and it's another thing you couldn't have predicted. Like, who would have predicted this?
Yeah.
You can't have.
I think someone probably did. I saw that someone at least predicted Emerald being the one who did the illusion, which I don't understand how we would know. No. I was definitely, it's not like we were, I was like telling you that it was Neo, and it's not like that was out of line with everyone. Yeah. Like that. So, I think what's really interesting about this Mercury scene is that like, most of the time for the villains that we see, it's like, okay, they steal stuff, they set Grinham on people, but we never really see anyone die. Like, whatever. They're likable, and they're not even that bad, right? So, but
Mercury killed somebody.
Mercury just killed his father, right? So this sets a completely new tone for his character.
Yes.
I think that, like, when I see him, he will not be sympathetic. I mean, he was barely a person. He was like, I barely cared about him at all now. So this like definitely will influence my perception of him. I do like that they're making things more serious. That makes sense for.
And then also we can't even complain that Mercury, like, oh, he has a more interesting backstory than Emerald. No, they really do both just have like basic.
They're both basic. Yeah, I don't think the one's more interesting. What I mean by that is I like that, or the thing I said before, I like that we're getting the villains like actually are bad people, you know, or like they're self-serving. I mean, it's, you know, we don't know. Maybe Mercury obviously had a terrible person as a father. Maybe he was trying to kill him or something, right? You know, it could. I mean. Did he burn down the entire house? Were there other family members there? Presumably not. But you know, it seems malicious because the house is burning, right? It seems like
definitely.
Okay. So I don't know. I just think this is a interesting place to take a kind of a blob of a character. I think it's a good idea to go with him. I don't know if everyone agrees with Mercury not being. He certainly had no development before, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, the only Emerald, like, we both liked Emerald, but it's not like Emerald really had a lot of development either. Like,
Emerald, at the very least, we saw being two-faced a lot with our main characters, so she had some interesting stuff going on there. But also, I just like Emerald more, you know, so there's that. So now let's transition to our scene with Adam, who we finally get. We've been waiting for Adam all season since the finale of last episode. So the voiceover. So what's in it for me, says Mercury. We don't need him. Everything was going fine, says Emerald, and she gets slapped, so we hear. Do not mistake your place, says Cinder. My dad always said, if you need to know a city, ask the rats, says Mercury. And then we hear, well, hello, gorgeous. So the first set of lines are really good and like really interesting character dynamic building. We talked about that. Then there's those last two. And I think my dad always said, if you need to know a city, ask the rats, was talking about why they should go to Adam for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're the oppressed people.
They're the faunus, so.
Yeah. So that's transitioning into our current scene. But then we have, well, hello, gorgeous. So to me, the only person that this could sound like if it's a known character is Roman. I'm not going to confer. I didn't like try to listen to his voice and listen to this, but this is something Roman would say. It kind of sounded like him. And Roman is referenced in this scene, so I guess it makes sense to bring him up there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess this is him meeting her.
I don't know.
I think that these voiceovers kind of work. I think that they work better in the context of the viewing of the episode than they do by breaking them down. Like I almost think they're more artistic than like literal. It's like it's supposed to they're supposed to happen fast. They're supposed to be a little disorienting. They're supposed to just frame our reference from one scene to the next.
Yeah, no, they're just, I mean, we're getting thrown through a really rough sketch of a timeline. Like, that's what this is.
Which is what they're trying to, for sure what they're trying to do, yeah. And
it's like when you're reading a book and, like, it's different, like, when you watch a flashback or something in a movie, it's very different from reading one, and how they've structured it is how you would read a flashback, like, how you would read a series of scenes. Like, that's how this is, because typically when you're reading a book that has a scene like that, or if you're writing a scene like that, you do it mostly through dialogue. And that's what they're doing. Like, this is much more literary than visual, which is, of course, is why there's no scene. Like, it's black and we're just listening to it.
So it's like, why do you throw in lines like, well, hello, gorgeous, and Cinder's kind of motivations in the beginning? Well, it's to kind of frame the viewer for what's to come, and like what to just kind of give general character moments. It doesn't need to be directly related.
And it's also foreshadowing, because the only reason to have scenes like this is we're building Cinder up, we're building the villains up to a point, which finally we're getting to this point where we're building something to something.
Yeah, they're like all these flashbacks are telling us the story of Cinder, right?
Yeah. And so you have these lines here, like "Hello, gorgeous," and these things that are framing the foreshadowing of what is to come, like foreshadowing something Cinder will do, or like what's to happen, like, because that's what you do in a flashback, especially in a book, is that you throw in things like that don't seem important, but they will be later, and that's why, and they seem out of place on purpose because you're supposed to notice them.
So what I'd argue is that I view these as just really successful in what they're setting out to do, which is not to give necessarily concrete linear development of plot, but to kind of give character framing and framing us for the transition between scenes. I just really like I like this one too. I don't know, this voiceover, this exchange of dialogue in the beginning is just really great. Some of the best. I mean, this is kind of a condemnation of the rest of the show, but we don't normally get good expository dialogue about character relationships like this. So yeah, this scene with them going up to Adam. I think that this is probably one of the weaker parts of the episode. It's not necessarily super interesting to me. It's kind of obvious what's happening the entire time, and it's only interesting once we learn when it is at the end. So Adam's talking, he's like, why are you talking to me about this? Cinder says they need his skills. So at the very least, I buy Cinder's explanation of why they're approaching Adam. It's super vague and kind of unimpressive plot-wise, but I guess it kind of makes sense that she would need to go to the White Fang. Do you agree with that?
Well, I do, and then also I think it's more of a natural, like, we have to go to the White Fang so they can reject us and we can come back and beat them up and do it. Like, I feel like it's more like clearly.
You think that was her intent, was to be rejected the first time?
Well, she definitely wasn't surprised that she was rejected. I mean, obviously she's a human going to the Faunus, like, revolutionary group.
Yeah.
Clearly this wasn't going to pan out well. And I think Cinder, like, this entire time, nothing Cinder has done has been, like, off the cuff. Like, Cinder is a very careful, meticulous planner, and I do think that, I think this is clear not only in her actions, but kind of like how we see Cinder and like how she's portrayed in the show and how her mannerisms are. Granted, we don't know a ton about her, but I do think this was carefully planned, and she was definitely ready for this outcome. And whether the White Fang joined before she had Ember's power or after, it didn't matter. She was going to get her way. So I think she was definitely prepared for this outcome. I don't necessarily know if she expected it fully, but it certainly didn't bother her to come back later and like beat everyone up. So
yeah, I think prepared is a good way to put it. It's not like she planned this, but is prepared in case of it. It's hard to tell when Cinder's surprised. I don't think we've ever seen her like show the emotion surprised. Maybe.
And I don't even think we've had a moment where she would be surprised anyway.
Maybe the one exception is that like ending scene in the room earlier this season when they learned that Crow was here. They seemed a little shaken up about that. But
yeah, they seemed weird.
But like seriously, I mean that's why Cinder's kind of like an uninteresting character. Like I love Cinder, and there's a lot of people who love Cinder, but it's not very interesting when your villain is just completely in control the entire time and you don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, when you have a completely stoic.
Yeah.
Also, I know it's like hypersexual, but I really enjoyed like the constant like heels. Like I don't know, for me it's like I understand it's hypersexual, but it's also a lot of it when you have a female villain, it's also like. I've always identified like heels with power, like feminist power and doing things like that. And I do understand it is also sexual, but it doesn't bother me. Cause you can identify, it's also part of like reclaiming things like that. For me, feminist power, I enjoyed the heels. Those are things that I like because that is something, that's how I identify with it. And that's part, I think, of reclamation of things like that.
That's interesting because that might have been my biggest complaint with the entire episode. Like at one point I saw she was fighting in heels and I was like, what? What do I, it's, you bring up reclaiming things. it's really hard to discuss things that are reclaimed. You get into this in dialogue all the time in progressive groups and stuff like that. It's just impossible to debate it. I think the surface level criticism, which I naturally had while watching, was, and of course you need to make Cinder look pretty. She needs to be wearing heels, even though it makes no sense when she's fighting. And your argument is like that this is or your interpretation was, this is kind of a feminist thing, and I can see that, you know. I'm skeptical that the people who work on the show would have that interpretation that you have when they're making it.
I agree.
So I'm naturally would. I don't know why Cinder needs to look as fabulous as she does all the time. It doesn't really make sense a lot.
I will say I didn't enjoy the shot where it was like her legs then trailing up her skirt. Didn't enjoy that one, but
yeah. It wasn't. I don't think it was terrible, but yeah, I agree.
Well, it's like for me, the heels is very like Kill Bill, and
yeah, which I think we would have the same debate about. I mean, I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
I think it's the same exact debate for Kill Bill. So we'll talk more about Cinder and her during the fight scene, which we haven't even gotten to yet. So the White Fang is not a party fire; it's a force of revolution, says Adam. Seems pretty standard from what we've seen from the White Fang.
Yeah.
Cinder says, "I believe our plan would be beneficial for all parties involved." Then she says, "I have an associate in Vale. He and I are working on a revolution of our own, but we need your forces." So what's interesting about this episode is how much Roman is left out of the picture, much like all season. Yeah. And this is kind of the reference to him. So it seems like she was working with Roman before she recruited the two of them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it seems like it. And I think she would probably want to secure like a base communication before recruiting extra people.
Yeah, it's so looking at Cinder's plan as like using societal oppression and unrest in order to incite revolution for her own gain is kind of how this episode maybe frames that. Not that that's necessarily new, because the end of last season also would suggest that once we learn that she's working with that Adam, you can draw that conclusion. I guess the problem is we don't know what own gain means. I think it's kind of an interesting concept to use societal oppression like that. I mean, it's not something that's completely new, but I think it's interesting enough.
Well, it's interesting in that, like, what on earth does it, like, other than her own power, what is Cinder fighting for? Like, what does Cinder want?
We have no idea.
And I do think this will be, unfortunately, I do think this will turn out to be more of a, very similar to Korra and the, non-bender equality, is that it'll probably turn out to be nothing, and it'll be more of, Cinder wanting, she just needs the force, she just needs the manpower to do what she wants to do. Like,
that's super interesting. So you're comparing Cinder to Amon from Legend of Korra's first season. Turns out Amon wasn't a non-bender, and that he's just using this for his own, power sees. And many people were unsatisfied with that. I think the difference is that Amon was like our face of the non-bender revolution, whereas Cinder Adam is our face of the fauna revolution, and Cinder is seen like associating with that. It's hard to comment until we know literally anything about Cinder's motives.
Yeah, which I really hope that's not what's going to happen, because I think it'd be very interesting to see if this is actually going to be something, because, I mean, everything with the non-bender movement was very, it just wasn't satisfying at all.
What would it take to have satisfying motives for Cinder, especially with regard to the White Fang? Does her cause have to be related to the fauna somehow, or like? Well,
I would assume it has to be some form of like the only thing I could possibly think of, which it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, we're introducing new mythology, so they could literally pull something out of nowhere and do it. But maybe something like they need to be free of like the hunters and the huntresses, and like something equality for all people or something. Like, I don't know. Like, it makes no sense. I mean, I would enjoy to see something that could be some kind of like unifying thing for the humans and the faunas, but I just don't know. I highly, highly doubt it will be satisfying. But the only way I can think of, like, and granted, even doing like the equality for all people, like, yeah, obviously that's great. I'm all for that. But like, I don't know if they can do it in a way that's like not irritating or like clearly like dumb in like approaching it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't see I don't see this being like a selfless cause that Cinder could latch onto. I don't think we've been presented with anything that makes sense in that regard.
Like I'm definitely seeing Cinder betraying Adam and like Adam dying in some horrible way, and then with Blake there, of course.
I can see people it would make sense for Cinder to be working for. That would be kind of satisfying, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in terms of just why, I think the only thing I think what's going to happen is that Cinder's a lackey, right? So, and the problem is,
I do hope it's not like a dark, I'm going to say Avatar thing, because like literally this mythology is Avatar. But I really hope it's not like a dark, like I do not want Unavatu on RWBY, like please no, because I think that is a concern we should have, is that whoever Cinder is serving is like the anti-power to, because naturally you have to have balance, so you would have to have like these opposing forces. Yes, they're the seasons, but they're also like unbelievably powerful. And so we could, or someone seeking that power, or someone who has somehow like who has done what Cinder has done and has gathered power and it wants is like is the opposition force. And I think that is something we should be concerned about, that we'll have like this like anti kind of Unavatu thing.
We are 100% doing the Dark Avatar plotline. There is no doubt in my mind that is where we're going with this. And we are referencing book 2 of The Legend of Korra, where Unavatu tried to who cares? That was a bad plot. So it's like the stealing the powers of the Avatar and stuff like that, right? So, or an evil version of the Avatar. In this case, it seems like it's stealing and stuff like that.
Well, I will be more satisfied if it's Cinder and she isn't a lackey, but she's a lackey, and I'm really just hoping it's not like she's serving some dark force. Like, please, no.
The problem is if Cinder is your dark avatar and she's also a lackey, then it's like your ultimate power isn't even in charge. It just seems super unsatisfying.
Well, I don't want dark avatar, but I'm just like, I'm really concerned that Cinder is serving some dark power, like something that opposes, why can't I say, like, whatever
Ospen?
they are,
the guardian, what did we call them?
Whatever they are. Yeah, that's why I couldn't remember what we decided they were.
I don't remember what we decided. Yeah. Their group. Yeah. Okay. Let's put that on pause for a second, because we need to get the last, voiceover in order to fully talk about that. They won't entertain dying for a human cause. But then the interesting part of this scene, because I think all that's kind of standard and maybe took too long, was, what was that about? Says Blake as she comes up to Adam afterwards, and Adam says, nothing, we need to finish preparing.
Blake spoke.
She spoke for the first time in like a lot of episodes.
My child arrived at
Nothing, we need to finish preparing. The train will be here at dawn. The train referencing the black trailer so suddenly, these pre-show trailers are super relevant in RWBY. This is the second time we've had a pre-season 1 trailer come up for some reason, and they weren't relevant ever. I mean, the Yang's trailer was relevant before, in season 1, I think, right? And I guess RWBY's is relevant at the beginning of the season, and now we've had the last one come into play. So you kind of see the before, the train being the parting of Blake and Adam, and this being their last scene together. Of note, Blake does not see them. She comes in right afterwards. This is something we're gonna have to talk about. Why doesn't anyone know who they are if so many people interacted with them? Blake came in right afterwards, so I'm gonna buy Blake not knowing who they are, because she was not part of that meeting.
Which is also weird that she wasn't part of the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of maybe Adam already distrusted her at that point, I guess.
Yeah.
We don't really know much about that. So, okay, so next scene, we can finally get to our big fight scene here. Attacking, Amber, what is she? The Autumn, what is it? Maiden. Yeah, Maiden, there you go.
It's Autumn Maiden.
Yeah.
Also, LOL, on a horse, riding very casually.
What do you think of her being on a horse?
It really shouldn't have weirded me out, but it really weirded me out that she was on a horse. Like, it's so very not RWBY-like, and I'm like, why is she on a horse? Why?
Yeah, I can't think of when horses have came into play. Maybe I'm not remembering, but
like, obviously, like, RWBY can, like, they can have horses, that's fine, but I don't know, like, everything we see is some weird, like, mixture of fantasy and sci-fi and magic, and then she's on a horse, and I'm like, what? If it had been, like, a weird robot horse, like, like the Lego movie. If it had been like a police horse, I would have been fine.
That would have made more sense. Yeah, we haven't seen many actual animals.
It was like, I know something like that really it really brought me out. I was like, what? Why is she on a horse?
Yeah. Okay. I guess it was just the show, as per usual with the show. I think it was just a cool visual. That's like the show in a nutshell. It was nice. Just a cool visual. Okay, let's do the voiceover between the Adam scene and the Amber scene. So what now? There's another task we must attend to. Excuse me, but I'm looking for a friend of mine. Sounded like Emerald. Again, this is them fishing for information. Yes, she was just here yesterday. Yeah. Someone we don't know, talking about the Fallen Maiden. Remember the plan exactly as discussed, not a foot out of place. This was a very literal voiceover. This wasn't as artsy as the previous ones. I do like how they're achieving a lot of storytelling within a few short lines. They're not shying away from having like somewhat complicated concepts like fishing for information from unknown characters within it. I think that could have easily not worked, but I guess it did. Like, it was obvious to me that's what they're doing.
Well, it's very interesting in that, like, a lot of times we complain about dialogue in RWBY, and then we're really progressing very quickly, and it's making a lot of sense with our dialogue.
Well, this is the perfect outlet for stale, like, dialogue. Like, you're only getting, like, 5 lines within each voiceover. Yeah. So it's like the typical RWBY dialogue is perfect here, whereas normally it's not satisfying. So, like, that's why that's another argument in favor of this as a plot device here. So let's talk about this giant scene with Amber. So first of all, let's talk about her. Her design, let's hold off on the Avatar comparisons. What do you think of stuff about her, like her staff?
I like people in hoods. I like hoods. Her staff is,
just fire things on the end of her staff.
Yeah, we don't really see it really until the end. Like, obviously she has it, but we're not really paying that much attention to it until the end.
She fires some stuff out of it during the fight.
Well, yeah. But, like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't paying as much attention to it until, like, she was literally going to stab Emerald.
Okay, so here's what this scene is. I have for you how Monty envisioned the scene. Monty was watching the series finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender and said, I want that. And he took all of that and he put it here. And that's what this is.
Yep.
We have Amber, who is literally the Avatar. To be fair, we don't really see her wielding Earth. She just uses the other 3 elements.
And literally went to the Avatar state.
She literally goes in the Avatar state, and she literally gets Aang to Ozai at the end.
Yes.
Literally, Monty's like, okay, I want what Aang's doing to Ozai, except it gets cut off in the middle. And that's what we're doing here.
And then we even had the lightning bolt.
There's a lot of stuff, but like, I mean, she uses lightning, she uses ice. I mean, it's
well, I meant like what a zoo, like, she got Ozide and a Zulid.
Did she get a Zulid?
Like the arrows?
The arrow, her getting a Zulid. Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. So now, okay, we've had references to Korra books 1 and 2 and Avatar's book 2 and 3 now. And to Avatar book 1, we're talking about the tonal change too. But I mean, this is just clearly Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, we come from an Avatar and Korra background in podcasting and fandom. To me, though, this is just like the most obvious influence that I've ever seen out of anything.
Even throwing away the mythology that is just so painfully Avatar, like, this fight was literally the Avatar state.
I know there's 3 other Avatars, so she's not the Avatar, but
yeah,
she's
an Avatar.
She goes into the Avatar state. She's a ball of wind around her. Like, come on.
Her eyes glow.
Her eyes glow, except it's with fire outlining instead of, right. And that's the symbol of her being the maiden and activating her powers. Later we see Cinder having the same eye glowing thing.
And getting the symbols or whatever.
Did we see that? Yeah, we see that symbol on Cinder's back. Did I miss that symbol on Amber or no?
I will granted Amber.
Name Amber or Ember?
I've been calling her Ember. I do not know her name.
Her name's Ember. Okay, I'm sorry. Whatever I'm saying, it's the other one. There you go.
Okay, Ember. So because remember I was like, maybe Ember and Cinder are related, but Ember, like, granted, Ember's wearing like a lot more clothing than Cinder is, so I think, granted, if you're gonna do that, we should see it on Ember.
No, it's Amber, not Ember. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused.
Amber. Oh my god, I'm so confused.
That's my bad.
I don't know.
Did we see the symbol on her or not? Like, that's my
no.
No, okay, that's.
But she's wearing more clothing, but it also doesn't make a lot of sense for, like, to do something like that and not show it on her. Like, I don't know have you seen Bulletproof Monk?
No.
Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Message me. You've seen Bulletproof Monk and you know what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry about that. For not having seen the thing that you want to reference. Okay, so this fight scene I think is really great. I think it's obvious Monty worked on it. It's like fast paced. It's really visually unique. I don't care that like you might think, oh, they're literally just doing Avatar. That's criticism. I don't care. If you're gonna make that's a good thing. Like Avatar, you think the series of finale of Avatar was unique? Obviously, that's Mike and Brian taking from like literally a bunch of other stuff. So I'm not concerned with the appropriation of the story here.
It's not a problem.
What I'm concerned with is whether it's a good fight scene, and I think it is clearly the best fight scene of the season. It's like Amber's like awesome. I love how she looks. I love how she activates her powers. I love how she's opposed. I love how we simultaneously see the reveals of the powers of Amber and the reveals of the powers of Cinder at the same time, who we haven't really seen fight like this before. It's just and
Mercury's legs.
We see Mercury's legs revealed. We see kind of the fruits of this less prominent, but we see Mercury and Emerald come into play with how they more so their interactions with Cinder, I feel like, are like not personified but like represented within the fight. And like I'm making hand gestures while I'm saying this to like demonstrate how like I'm passionate about it. This fight scene was awesome, and I'm really proud of the show for doing it. This is what the show needs to be. This is what the show is. Like it's like incredibly. This is to me is reminiscent of the Emerald Forest in Emerald. Really, more similar sounding words from season 1, and like that's my the Red Roses playing during the takedown of the giant thing at the end with RWBY. Like that's my favorite part of the show. That got me so hooked into RWBY, and I just felt a similar level of passion here. And like I don't know, hopefully I'm explaining well why I react so positively to this episode. And this is a big part of it. Similar reactions, or was it just good?
No, I mean I loved this fight. We have the same favorite fight, and for me, this one isn't as up there with that one. But I mean, I loved it. There's just a lot that happens in this fight scene. I think it's done so well in a way that, like, we have his legs, and then we have Cinder's power and Amber's power, and it's all wrapped in this narration of how Emerald got her, how it tricked her, and it's so great. And it is Avatar. And for a moment I was like, LOL, it's Avatar. And it's fine.
It was a little distracting at first.
It is distracting. And granted, some of the best animated fight scenes ever are from Avatar. So like, it's not a problem. Like, obviously they took good notes. And I thought the fight was phenomenal. And especially after that really, really terrible, like, stale Winter and Crow fight from before. And like, it's just great.
We did like that fight at the time, but this is like on a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, the Winter and Crow fight were like, it wasn't really unique in that, like, it's a fight we've seen before.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying. It wasn't that it was bad. It was just like typical. And this is like kind of unique for the show. Like to me now there's like this, I had like a pantheon of like the 3 best fight scenes for the show. It was the Emerald Forest, it was the train at the end of last season, and then it was the last episode of last season with Coco. And to me, this makes number 4 in the pantheon. Like I loved it that much. Okay, so
this is the first fight we've seen where like the intent is to kill. Like we know the intent of this fight, and it's very different from like, you have like RWBY, fighting the bad guys, but like the intent is very different from this.
That's a good point. Talking about the tonal shift of the show, this is much different than fighting Grimm. This is like they're fighting to incapacitate her and steal the power, right? I mean, maybe
which is why
we don't know whether they wanted to kill her or not. It seems like they didn't, but I mean, it seems like they needed her alive for the power transfer, and then she would die, right?
Yeah. But I do think like this is and that's part of the reason why this fight is so spectacular is because of the stakes and that definitely influenced, like all the powers we got to see, and like I don't think we've seen so many semblances going on at once, and it's awesome. Like
I couldn't keep track of everything.
Like it's so great.
So here's a question. One of your big criticisms was that we're just seeing things that we heard about last episode. Did that detract, like we know the outcome of this fight, so did that detract from seeing it for you at all?
Not the fight. The fight is one of my favorite parts of the episode, and part of what I think is definitely like a good like aspect of the episode was the fight. And this didn't detract, because I think it is very interesting. Now, for the other things, it does detract, because it's like, why? I don't care. But this is different in that, there is a certain, emotion involved and a certain, way you view things when you know the outcome in this kind of situation. Like, it's like when you watch characters go through something and like you see them struggle and you know it's all pointless, and like that kind of feeling as a viewer, and like what you know is going to happen, but Ember doesn't know. And I think that is, it's a very powerful thing to watch. And I do think, in this case, it's in situations like this, in a fight like this, and especially we've seen her hurt, we saw the marks on her face, and you know how close she is to death. And I think in this case, it's done very well, knowing the outcome in this situation. It's great.
I think that if there was a part that would be like diminished because we know the outcome, it would be the power transfer at the end. But it was but that was just so striking, and like we didn't know that it would just be this weird bug that would come out of her hands, and like the tendrils from it. We
didn't know Crow.
Yeah, we didn't. You could. Yeah, I didn't anticipate Crow coming, but it does make sense with what they've said this season.
Well, I mean, I was watching it and I was like, isn't she supposed to have like bodyguards or something? And
yeah, that's true. Crow, what would you do? I mean, he's probably like drunk or picking up women or both, right? Yeah. And speaking of, okay, back to that in a second. So, powers we see from Amber, a force field, which is not Avatar to be fair, although they're Air Force fields. It didn't sound like it was an Air Force field. She does air bending with her staff. We're going to call this bending because that's what it is. They call this magic. So in the show, this is elemental magic, which is literally what bending is. She does fire with the staff. She blows the pants off Mercury, revealing the robotic leg. She goes in the Avatar state. She's the fire surrounding her eyes. She's a wind sphere. The only sign of earthbending would be the ground crumbling below her wind sphere, which I'm not sure is the result of her manipulating it. But really, it just seems like it's fire, air, and water. She also does lightning and ice, which may or may not be separate in this world, you know. Lightning, ice, leaves. That was really cool. Was her ice leaves?
That was really weird.
I loved that.
I didn't dislike it, but it was odd.
It was just really visually striking.
Yeah, but it was like super weird, but I liked it.
I think it makes sense that she airbends leaves up. Like, I don't think she's manipulating the leaves. I think she's airbending them up and then icifying them. That seems like something that could happen in the Avatar world.
No, that's what I was about to say. It's very much a Katara move. Like, we've seen Katara
do that with like ice spikes. Yeah.
Well, what I meant, we've seen her take water from plants, so you could theoretically take the water from the leaves and then use that ice.
I think the visual was indicating that she's blowing them, but you're right, that would make sense too. I mean, I guess dried leaves probably don't have that much water in them if they're from the ground.
It was also surprising. Like, I was like, I just not there was no way I would have been like, oh yeah, she's gonna put ice on the leaves. Like, no, like who's gonna guess that? It was shocking and weird, but I liked it.
Yeah.
Like, who would have figured that out?
I would call it striking, yes. Very good. Which means the same. Air, fire blast, air, lightning, fire, after down. And then she uses all the elements again after she's taken down. So, Cinder, what's great about this scene, as I mentioned, we also get the reveal of kind of Cinder's powers. I don't know what we've seen of this before. I honestly don't remember Cinder doing stuff. Like, she's kind of fought before when she, like, infiltrated the school, but it was not really. It was more of her being evasive. She's super fast, and she can, like, go in and out of vision when she's running.
Yeah. She flickers.
It's not clear if that's her semblance. It's not clear if the magma stuff is her semblance.
It could be really related to her fire in that, like, she flickers like a flame. Like, that would make sense.
I don't know if that's what maybe they're going for.
I doubt that's what they're going for.
No idea.
They could be.
I could see it.
It's cool. It looks cool.
It does look cool. She creates embers around her and turns them into magma daggers. She also has dual blades for hand-to-hand combat. She has a bow. I don't know where she's keeping all this stuff. She has a bow.
Right?
With
she pulled a bow out.
Where did that come from? Does she have like a TARDIS bag? Is that what that is?
She has Hermione's bag. Like, that's what's on her belt. She has Hermione's bag.
I think that's what's happening. She fires 3 arrows at once, but they also like explode into fire on contact. In addition, later on we see her like appear an eye symbol below Crow and it like burns under Crow. So
I think that was after she had the Avatar's power.
So yeah, okay. The other time we see the symbol is when she's stealing the power, and it's on her end. So it's not clear. It's not clear if that's a sign of her stealing the power, or if that's of her stealing ability coming into play. Like,
I think that's the maiden power, because like it's the symbol of the eye with the fire. So I think that's like how they're related.
Okay, and it appears when she starts the transfer.
Yeah.
I would need to check it again to see if it's before.
And then she gets the power, and her eye does it, and then she uses the symbol. So I feel like that's what. Some sort of.
I think that makes more sense. So Cinder can do a lot of stuff. Amber's about to stab Emerald with a fire staff with her, like, where I guess she has dust gems right on the end. But then there's an arrow from Cinder. I feel like that part was a little unrealistic, just focusing on one person when there's three. But maybe she never saw Cinder that well because she's moving in and out. I don't know.
It was also a little weird, like, I don't know, like, obviously she's fighting for her life, but like, I mean, I can't say it's out of character. We don't know who she is, but I don't know. It did strike me as odd.
Yeah. Mercury and Emerald hold her up, and they stick her head out, very, very similar to how you have to do how Aang energy bends in the finale. A mark on the back of
they took away her bending. That's literally what happened.
They literally took away her bending. Like, this is, like I said, it's Avatar series finale. A mark appears on the back of Cinder's hand, and a beetle thing comes out of her hand. And like, then it's like, it like comes fully out, and then it retreats back after it shoots out the strings, tendrils, whatever you want to call it. And it connects to it wraps around her face or something, right? And then she gets the fire eyes, and the power transference happen. But then Crow comes and severs the tendrils that were sticking out. But Cinder still has the mark, so it shows that she has some of the power.
Now this last voiceover to me is like,
yeah, agreed, but we're not there. And she obscures her face with embers. Then she does the eye symbol, and then she disappears. Okay, so I like that Crow shows up, because that explains a lot of what we've seen, like them being afraid of Crow / Crow knowing them, right? That we get all that explained here. So Cinder obscures her face. That being said, here's the big suspension of disbelief I think you have to take with this episode is Crow not recognizing either Cinder. You could say, okay, she obscures her face, but there is a moment when Crow clearly should see Emerald and Mercury.
Yeah, Emerald and Mercury.
And at first I was like, oh, they weren't there when Crow attacked, but they're looking back, it's very obvious that they're holding Amber up, and Crow comes in and severs the thread. So they were literally right next to him at one point.
Yeah. He saw them.
So I can maybe understand him not remembering exactly what they look like. It happened very fast.
And they were gone the next second. So.
They're gone the next second, yeah, when he looked around. You could make an argument that Crow is the type of person who would remember Cinder's body specifically. Like, that's like, we've had that like developments for his character, that he's like a big, right? So there's that element too, which sounds like a joke, but like I actually think that could be a plot point with Crow.
Yeah, it could be.
And it's, so I don't know, where are you on this? Did this like ruin your suspension of disbelief with the plot?
I mean, really no, because a lot of it's because simply it's just ridiculous that they've been like, they literally went to the school, and like everything that's already happened, like this isn't even, like in comparison to everything else, this isn't even ridiculous. So like, it's fine. Like I don't know. It's really, I'm not, like, I don't know. These kinds of things don't bother me.
At least the show made an attempt to explain why he wouldn't notice them, because they disappear immediately after, right?
Like, I do, and they definitely played that scene up. So for that reason, like him looking around and then.
Yeah. So like on its own, okay, this is like, okay, Crow doesn't remember them. Fine. But then you had Blake earlier, and it's like Blake barely just missed them.
Like, it's ridiculous.
And maybe like, maybe even that's okay, fine. But then it's like, okay, they've been staying in the school for several months, and they like, you don't even know who they are. So I think overall, it just adds to the absurdity of them being able to hide like that. But like this on its own, it's like whatever.
Well, it's like a Scooby-Doo episode where like they constantly like miss the villain.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what they're intending. So it's like a joke's on them type of thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's time to reveal them to everyone. They've stayed well past their welcome with this hiding plot line for sure.
And especially since, and it's like they're not even looking for them. Like, that's what's so ridiculous about it all.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, there's like that's the biggest problem I have with all of this. Like, there is no sense of urgency to what is going on. Like,
it's very dumb. I don't know what we're going to see next. We need to see some good backtracking on the plot that's happening. Okay, this last voiceover, transitioning back to a scene with Adam. So we hear, I believe this is all there. Cinder has 4 lines here. I believe it's all Cinder. We hear, but it could just be, I don't know. I think it is. We hear the huntsman severed the connection before it was complete. Okay.
Yeah, it's Cinder.
Okay. I think that is, I think we could get that without that line, but yeah. She says, yes, it's an emptiness. It burns like hunger. I like it. Again, presumably Cinder.
Yeah, it's Cinder. That's what I think it's Cinder.
Yeah. What do you think of this concept? It's an emptiness. It burns like a hunger. I like it. Like not having all of the power. It burns.
I mean, it makes, like, from a fantasy magical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. This is how these things function. And like, they even talked about it, like, Ozpin and them talked about how, like, the power seeks out, and that's why they're afraid of her dying, but the rest of the power will go to Cinder. And, like, so they've established this in the mythology, albeit however poorly we want to say it was.
Yeah.
And also, it's really cool dialogue. Like, I like it. And then, like, it makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense for Cinder's character. I think it's an interesting aspect introduced to Cinder's character. And just from, like, I really like stuff like this. Like that, like, the kind of magic stuff I'm here for. Like, I think it's neat. It's interesting. I like the dark kind of weird stuff like that. And I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think this is also one of the most distinguishing aspects of Cinder's character we've gotten. That she, like, hungers for the emptiness that half of the power provides. It's like, it's like 5 words, but like those 5 words are more unique about her character than basically anything we've seen, I think. I would like this to manifest. I'm not sure her being completely calm the entire time manifests that.
Yeah, that's like, I would hope to see, like, a part where, like, you actually, like, her being, like, a little off.
I now think we have impetus for her to, like, freak out, right? Like, just go off when she's fighting. Like, even it doesn't even have to be her just, like, do something to, like, her behavior change, but, like, in a fight that she just, like fire everywhere, like, goes totally Azula in the Agni Kai, right? Like, that's, maybe they're setting that up. And we already,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
We already had the Azula comparison with Cinder earlier with the arrow, so maybe that's where we're going. But now we have, same voiceover, presumably Cinder's voice. So, yes, I will claim what is ours. And then she says, thank you. Okay. So we've wondered multiple times whether we're having a big bad above Cinder. We both said hopefully not. This line I don't think definitively says big bad above Cinder, but at the very least there's a partner to Cinder that we don't.
There's somebody else.
Here's the first question. Is there any chance that this is Roman?
I would say no.
This doesn't make sense with what we've seen of their dynamic, with Cinder having a power dynamic over Roman. Yes, I will claim what is ours does not suggest an unequal partnership with Cinder being at the top.
I will say they have set up Roman at this point to, like, he could come back later and, like, mess everything up or, like, have some, like, something up his sleeve. But I definitely don't think it's, like, in a way where it's, like, cooperative with Cinder.
Okay, so let's say it's not Roman. Okay, let's make our bets. Who is this? So the question, is there any chance that this is a character we do not know yet?
I don't think there's any chance that it's a character we know.
Why not?
Like, it wouldn't, like, one, there's aren't any characters that I can suspect. That would be very much like the show to just pull out, like, a sister or, like, a brother that's what I figure it is. Like, I can't even think of a character who could possibly be, unless I still think Ozpin is the sketchiest human being.
Yeah, no, so that's what I'm saying. Like,
it can't be Ozpin.
Why can't this be Ozpin?
Well, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for it to be Ozpin, like, at this point. Like, why would it be Ozpin? Like, what kind, and that's,
why would it not be Ozpin?
I don't know, like, for me, they would have to do a lot between, like, Cinder and Osmond. I'm like, they can't be lovers, like, they can't be related, like, I don't even know what they would have to do for me to buy it. Like, I don't even know. And I think Osmond's sketchy, but I don't even, like, I can't even think of any way they could do it and make it Osmond and for me to be happy with it.
See, I feel like the big bad needs to be someone we know in order to be somewhat satisfying, or like not even the big bad, just a partner to Cinder. And I also think that like a betrayal within this like solid group that we've seen would be like thematically satisfying.
It could be Glinda, and I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I see. Okay, yeah. So like, it's either. I mean, to me, it's either Glinda, Osmond, or Ironwood. But I also don't think it's Ironwood because I think that he's clearly being set up to be sketchy too much.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think Osmond is so sketchy, but like there is nothing I can think of in my mind that could connect.
I think they're just gonna tell us it's Osmond and like not even say anything. Like,
yeah.
I'm like 20. Okay, I'm like 20% Osmond on this, which is pretty high considering it's.
I want it to be Glinda because it makes more sense for it to be Glinda because you wouldn't suspect Glinda. Yeah. Like she doesn't do anything, and then like they could do it in a way where it makes sense for Glinda's character in that like we don't really interact with Glinda. Glinda is also how we meet RWBY, so like that could be like that makes sense, and like connecting our hero with our villain.
Yeah.
But like, and Glinda's the reason RWBY's there. Like,
why would Glinda want RWBY to be there though?
But then, I don't know, that's the other thing, like, why, like, we don't even understand, well, that's the big thing, like, I'm still expecting there's gonna be some sort of connection, like, they wanted RWBY for, like, especially if the villain is Austin, even though I don't think it is, like, why did he want RWBY there? That's the other thing. Austin's, like, Glinda's the reason Austin met RWBY, but Austin's the reason RWBY's there. Like,
yeah, so you threw that right back at me. Yeah, it works both ways on that.
And so, like, and I'm still expecting, like, we still have not connected our villains to our heroes. Like, why? Like, but there has to be something greater than RWBY and them wanting to defend the greater good. Like, does that make sense? Like, yes, they're heroic and they're great, but like, there is no reason for them to there's nothing going on.
I don't know what it would be that would be a better connection.
Well, I think my thing is like something else has to happen.
Unless they're like revealed as secondary maidens, right? Like that's the only thing that. Yeah. So here, let me make the argument for Osmond. So it being Osmond, I think is satisfying in that Osmond's a character we've seen a lot, but we don't know that much about him. So like you can fill in backstory. It's satisfying to have betrayal within the group, which already has conflict. It's satisfying that maybe it explains why they haven't found Cinder within the school yet. Osmond controls that, and he just wouldn't want to find them.
Also, it can't be Ironwood. She hacked Ironwood's phone.
She did, yes. So it's not Ironwood, I agree. I mean, that could be a misdirect on the show, but I don't think so. It being Osmond doesn't make sense because why would Cinder need to infiltrate the school to implement the hack? Osmond could just very easily do that. So I think that's the biggest evidence against it. Another piece of evidence for it being Osmond is that it would be satisfying with the Osmond versus Ironwood conflict, which we know is building somewhere. If it turns out Osmond's bad and then Ironwood's now our Osmond type figure, that is really satisfying from a narrative perspective, from someone who's been clearly shown as sketchy to then but well intentioned, but like kind of just like, and you can like see like a narrative light on him from like a bad guy perspective, and to just him just be thrust into like the completely good role.
But then I wouldn't like where the show would go from there though. Like that wouldn't be satisfying.
I'm skeptical that this reveal would be at the end of the season. Like, are we gonna know who this person is by the end of the season?
I feel like we're playing a long game, and this is like, how like we just got to this point, and like we still don't know anything.
If you read the recent blog post, it's like there's a long story to go, and now it's gonna be dark from here on out, and it's like Miles and Carrie are like, Monty plans with us like 7 seasons, and it's like, okay, so we're probably not going to reveal the big bad here, if that's true. Unless you clearly want this season to be a turning point, which it kind of does seem like, and so it's like the turning point, and now we have the real big bad at the end of the season. I don't know that why wouldn't Osmond just implement the hack? I think is a pretty big argument against it being him. I can't think of a reason for that right now.
Well, like, narratively, I want it to be a character we know, but like aside from Glinda, which just because we don't know anything about Glinda, she's just there all the time, which that does make sense in that Glinda's there all the time. She doesn't really do anything. Like, she'd be the easiest to like make evil. Does that make sense?
Yeah, she would be the easiest. The other, to explain it, the other big theory I've seen is Raven, Yang's mother, which we saw for like 2 seconds, is Cinder's partner in this.
That would work.
And it's like, how are we going to discuss that? We know nothing about Raven, right? So
yeah, but like there's no.
We still don't know what happened when Raven approached Yang at the end of last season. So
yeah, thanks
show for explaining that and not bringing that back until episode 7. So that was fun.
No. I will say, talking about what I was talking about earlier about like what I mean by we have to connect the villains is that so we understood why they were fighting before. Like we had to go fight the Grimm. We found out this information. We're trying to help. Right now we're just in a tournament. They have nothing to do. Like they're just in a tournament. They don't know anything that's going on. They think everything's good and happy and woo. And
Team RWBY?
Like yeah.
Well, they still have this running conflict of them investigating stuff from.
Yeah, like they want to know, but the thing is, like they don't they're not doing anything at this moment. Like they know something's going to happen, but like they're like there's nothing going on. Like there's
nothing happening right now. Yeah,
like they're going at the festival, and so right now it's all fun and games in the festival. Like that's what is going on, and like they don't know that they've acted at the festival. They don't know they're literally sitting like 3 feet over from like the bad guys. Like they don't know.
Yeah, you're right. There needs to be something to thrust Team RWBY back into the conflict.
And I'm assuming it's because of Yang. Like, and I think I made that prediction like last time we talked about this was that it'll be Yang. Like. And we've been built up to Team RWBY will fall so low. And I think, this is the beginning. And it's not just going to be Yang. Like, we have to drop very low at this point. Because Team RWBY's been built up to be basically unstoppable. And so we have to drop. Like, we have got to reach rock bottom for Team RWBY and then go from there. And I don't know if, Yang has been, we don't even know what they're going to do with Yang. Like,
so thoughts on Yang betraying Team RWBY. So if Raven is indeed the big bad, so here's the theory: Raven talks to Yang at the end of last season, somehow convinces Yang to join up with her. This whole thing at the end is staged. Yang's actually in on it, and now they'll take her from jail or whatever and now she's with the villains or something, and that's how RWBY reaches rock bottom.
That'd be super interesting, but I don't think it would work. Like, it doesn't make so much sense.
It's thematic. I like Osmond. I think it's like thematically satisfying, but I just don't think it works with what we've seen, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense with Yang's character. Like, obviously wants to know about her mom, but like, she wouldn't abandon RWBY like that.
Like, on one hand, it makes sense because we don't know anything about Yang. Like, she's like super undeveloped. But on the other hand, we know that she loves RWBY, right? So I don't think that works.
And when it came down to a fight, I don't think Yang could hurt RWBY.
No, which could be a plot point, but I think that's something to consider.
So, I mean, that would be interesting. Like, I really like that idea thematically, but I also don't know if it can be done in a way that wouldn't be, like, terrible.
I think the show will do something like that. I think they'll do a Yang betrayal or an Osmond reveal. I think something like that's going to happen.
I don't necessarily know if it'll be like a Yang betrayal so much as like Yang's in prison and get her. Like, I don't necessarily know if Yang will have a choice.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
To me, that would work better. Like, to me, that would make more sense. And then that even throws in the whole, they think she betrayed them, but she's not like, she has no control over what's going on.
Yeah. I don't know if Raven would order them to have Yang, to like scar Yang like this and then take her back. Raven being the bad also is satisfying on a level of she's their former teammate. So it's like a betrayal to Crow and, Osmond, right? And so I don't know what they're doing with all this. But I think something like this is coming, and these are the type of things we should theorize because something narratively needs to happen. You're right.
I do really hope it's not like Blake. Like, I don't want Adam to come back and like they do something stupid with Blake.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about Blake quickly. People think Blake's gonna die.
No, that's terrible.
I don't know why. I haven't really read like the theory in depth, but people think Blake's dying. I don't know.
I mean, like, I think I said it before, like, I do expect someone on Team RWBY to die.
I guess that's why we need the content warning. Someone's dying.
Yeah.
And in the post, they're like, this isn't necessarily immediately applicable, but we need to post it now before it gets too late. Basically, they say that.
Well, because like I think I've mentioned because I've talked about like we have like they've set them up to fall, and like I don't know if there's somebody's gonna get hurt, somebody's gonna die. Like I think they will kill someone off. Like they're gonna kill somebody off.
Oh, people also think Pyrrha's dying.
I think that's probably a definite yes. They're gonna kill her off.
I don't know what the point of that is.
Well, what's the point of killing Blake off? Like,
I would at least have like an impact on our characters. Like,
well, it would. Well, killing Pyrrha would have an impact on the characters.
Yeah,
as well. It wouldn't be as strong.
It just wouldn't be that strong, you know.
Killing Pyrrha would serve a plot purpose
because she's like, involved in all this now. Yeah.
Yeah, like killing her would serve that purpose. Like killing. I mean, what? Like the only way I can see Blake dying is like her sacrificing herself, or like because. Okay. Also, why are we going to kill the most well-developed character? Why? Why would we do that? It's a terrible idea.
I think Weiss is surpassed at this point, but
Blake
has not talked this season. But
that's true. Well, no, I don't necessarily think like because
you agreed with me that Weiss was now the most developed character earlier this season.
But Blake is more Blake's character is more consistent.
Through seasons 1 and 2, Blake had the most consistent characterization. I agree. This season's just fallen off a cliff though.
Yeah, we just haven't seen Blake, and like killing her would like why would like killing Blake or Weiss wouldn't make a lot of sense. Like why would you do that? And
killing Blake makes sense if the
Blake has more background. That's right. Blake has more background than Weiss, and it's more involved with the plot, which makes sense for killing her, but also doesn't make sense for killing her because she is
makes sense
our grounding to the
plot. It makes sense to impact the plot. It doesn't make sense because you undo all that back stuff. I think killing Blake makes the most sense if you start to view what they're trying to do with RWBY as a Game of Thrones of the 100 shows where you're more free with the cat, like you're more free with like getting rid of people in order to progress like plots, and also it's like some sort of shock value involved. I mean, I'm not gonna be the best at explaining why Game of Thrones.
But I also think not having Blake this season and then killing her is just going to completely defeat the purpose of killing her.
I agree with that. I don't understand why they would not show her that much if they're just going to do that.
I mean, it would decrease like the pain, I guess, except not really because Blake's like my fave. But then that completely removes like the emotional trauma of killing Blake off.
Yeah. So let's do the RWBY Death Watch. Primary target Pyrrha. I think we agree.
Yeah, Pyrrha. I think there is actually no doubt in my mind that Pyrrha will die.
I have doubt because I don't understand what it would do, but at the same time, it seems like the show's going to do that. It seems like they foreshadowed that.
I could even see it being very soon. Like there's some sort of accident with the transfer and she dies. Like for me, that's what I think is going to happen.
Who else is likely to die? We have Blake as somewhat likely. RWBY's not dying. Any chance of Yang or Weiss?
I feel like killing Weiss would be like atrocious, but would also would destroy RWBY's character. And I think that would be, they could do it for the sake of RWBY, but my thing is, I don't know, at this point, it doesn't make sense why they would do that. Like, why would they need to shatter RWBY that way?
Agree, except for the rock bottom type thing you were talking about.
Yeah, but well, I mean, we need to hit rock bottom, but like, right now, I need Team RWBY to hit rock bottom. That's what I meant. Like, the Team RWBY has to hit
unless you want to go like super dark, character RWBY from then on.
I mean, I can see them doing that, but right now, I don't know why. Like, right now, I don't understand why we need RWBY to have that moment. Like, for plot, for what's going on, there's no reason for that to happen right now. I mean, that can change. Like, we could, at the end of the season, I'm like, okay, we gotta destroy RWBY as a person. We need to, like, destroy her. But right now, like, there's no reason. Team RWBY needs to hit rock bottom because they've been, like, flying high the whole time. Like, that has to happen.
Yeah.
Because Team RWBY, until this point, has not had anything bad.
This season.
Yeah. There's been I mean, like, as a unit, as a team, aside from, like, the Blake thing, there hasn't been anything to, like, challenge their power, their superiority, like, their ability to do anything. Nothing has happened yet. So,
well, this Yang thing is the beginning of what you're talking about.
Yeah. This is the beginning. That's why this has to happen.
Going to jail or whatever, whatever's going to happen.
I think I did predict before this happened that, like, we had to have this moment before Yang.
I mean, we need to just do something. So.
Yeah, like, they have to, because they have to hit rock bottom, and then we have to go from there.
I would go. Yeah, I don't think RWBY they need to do that to RWBY. I think Yang is like slightly more likely than Weiss just because of some of the reasons of the reason I think she could be turned bad, but at the same time that would have the same effects on RWBY, which we don't think are happening. Yeah.
I am concerned they're going to try and do something with Blake, and like, it wouldn't make any sense though for Blake to like betray them. Like, we had a literally entire plotline of why she wouldn't do that.
Yeah, Blake's not going to betray them. I agree. I could see her like taking Adam down at the same time. Like, that would make thematic sense, right? Like, yeah. But like, Adam's not even a threat right now. We haven't seen enough of him, so I don't know. The reason this is kind of this like big moment talk that usually doesn't happen on these type of shows, and for RWBY, I would say that it's also not likely to happen, except they're clearly trying to change what the show's about at this point.
Yeah.
So I think they're just gonna do something like this for the sake of it, basically.
Like, we're gonna have something. Granted, that's also kind of what this episode was. Well, the last episode we watched was the Yang attacking Mercury. Like, yeah. That's it. And
except it's not it's not that big of a deal.
No, it's not. Yeah. But it's.
I don't know if they know that, but it's not even that big of a deal.
Yeah, no, so, it's not.
Yeah, so we'll see where they go with this. Expect something right like this. Maybe we're misinterpreting this moment, and it's like this is supposed to be the moment that satisfies everything we're talking about, but I'm not so sure about that.
Well, but I would expect, actually, I'm expecting to be very annoyed by by this moment. Like, I'm expecting I really am expecting like a pointless death. Like, I'm almost expecting them to kill off a character just for the sake of development, which, like, that happens, and, like, it can be done well, and it can be okay. But I'm also afraid they'll do it, and it'll be completely, like, why? Like, why? This does not matter.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're gonna kill off someone important, and it'll be like, oh my god, why? And then it really won't matter.
Yeah. You need to clearly play up how the other characters are reacting.
Like, I'm really concerned that's what's going to happen. I'm afraid it's going to happen soon.
I'm not really concerned. I mean, Pyrrha dying, I don't think that it falls into that category. So I'm not really that concerned, except for Blake.
No,
like,
Pyrrha dying.
I think there's a slight worry with Blake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, like,
I think it's more likely than not that she doesn't, though. So we'll see.
Well, like, and I certainly don't expect anyone on Team RWBY to die this season. I think we can probably, we're dropping into bottom, like, we're beginning that descent, but we could maybe expect someone to be injured, like, to the point of, like, it will be a problem.
I guess, yeah.
But I'm not expecting anyone on Team RWBY to die this season.
I don't think it's likely either. Okay, back to the episode, quickly. We have a few things left. We have Yang and we have Adam's reactions to what happens. We have the associate saying, "We'll find her, sir. Forget it. It's not my turn." Miss Minstrel says, says Adam, referencing Blake. I'm glad we got another line about that. It kind of ties it together. We have our villains outside, and they have to force the deal with Adam, and she's like firebending, right? Which seems to be the result of the powers. So it's possible she only has firebending right now and didn't get air and water. I guess that makes sense. Part way transfer, right? And then we have our scenes we flash back to the end of last episode. Go to the hospital. Yang's like, "You attacked me, I swear." Nurse Cinder. They fly away. We have actually kind of a funny line from Mercury. Doc, tell me, will I ever walk again? I think that was a good line right on that.
I liked it.
Yeah.
It made me laugh.
Emerald says, headache, 1 mind I can handle, but 2 is the stretch. Very briefly, what other mind was she controlling?
Yeah, that's what I can't. I think that's actually like the most important thing right now.
People are like, oh, she's also doing the paramedics, but I don't know why that would make sense. I don't know who her second mind is.
Well, I think clearly what the line indicates is that she did 2 minds at once.
So it's Yang and who's the second one, right?
Yeah, like, who else?
Who perceives events differently?
Yeah, like, because she didn't need to do Mercury, and then the crowd saw her.
Or does that just mean that she altered, like, because when we see her using her power before, it's her implanting into people's minds of her doing something. And in this case, it was implementing into Yang's minds of Mercury doing something. So maybe 2 minds mean she has to do it with relation to Mercury and not herself.
I don't think that's what it is. I really do think that line's really important in that somebody else, and I don't know who it could be or why it matters, but like, I think that's really important. It will come up later.
I'm not sure. I think it might be what.
Because for me, it doesn't make sense for her to have to do that to Mercury. Like, she wouldn't have to do anything to Mercury's mind.
Like, it only makes sense from the angle that what we've seen her all the times previously in this episode was involving herself. It's like from that angle it makes sense, but I agree it doesn't. Like, why did she need to go inside of Mercury's mind? I don't know.
She didn't because as far as we know, Mercury, like, what she saw was what Amber saw. Like, she didn't see Mercury. She just saw Mercury. No. She didn't see. She didn't see Mercury standing there. She saw Mercury attacking.
Yeah, I don't think she altered Mercury's perception. So I don't understand.
So
maybe we'll see. That could just be like a thing that was not stated very clearly. That is not coming back, but we'll see. And then we have Neo driving. Neo is just the most unsubstantiated character. I really like Neo, but they better do something quick with her because all they're doing is like, and Neo's here, isn't she cool?
I literally forget who she is. Like, when we were talking the last time and you're like, Neo, I'm like, I don't even know who that is. And then like, when she's in the car, like, I didn't know that was Neo. Like, I don't know who Neo is. Like, I don't.
I wonder if people who don't look at as much other stuff. The only reason I know Neo so well is because on CO there's a lot of fans of her. But
that's the thing is, like, I watch the show and we talk about it, and I don't know who Neo is. Like,
yeah, I wonder if like more casual fans don't. Not that I'm like super into the fandom, but I see some stuff, right? And
like, I see RWBY and Weiss fan art. That's like the extent.
That's the main thing you want to see, though. So,
well, and Blake
and some
my child.
Okay, then we see Lisa Lavender of VNN calling on Huntsman to aid in suppressing the spike of Grimm activity. So we learned that that was their goal, I guess, was to have the Grimm set on them. Emerald has a new robot leg. People are outraged with Yang. That was another thing. New robot leg, Emerald and Cinder are going to ensure that the next matchup goes smoothly. Yay, we're going back to the tournament. Woo! No, that's not yay. That was like the most anticlimactic thing. We just come off of this incredible episode and it's like back to what the bad stuff we saw.
But I also don't know what they're doing because they're like, okay, because she made a line, like they have to go continue rigging the tournament. But why? Like,
why are you rigging the tournament? We still don't know. So dumb.
Like,
tell us.
Okay, like this makes sense. So like they rigged it for this to happen. That makes sense. But like, why do they have to continue? Is this just not what they wanted? Like, what else do they need to do?
Well, I think that them rigging it to get this result was a little much. Like, if they needed to rig the entire tournament just to get this matchup,
but
at least that was a potential explanation. But now they're going. Obviously, there's something else, right?
Yeah, but like, what else is there? I don't understand.
I need to know immediately because I'm very, very tired of this tournament. Mercury is going to lay low until the end, says Cinder. So I don't know if that's the end of the tournament or. So yeah, no more Mercury. I think they included that line as to not have Mercury in the show anymore until the finale. I think that's the purpose of that line.
Yeah.
So.
If we'd had a line like that about Blake, I might have been okay. But where is Blake?
I mean, she was in this episode, but in the backstory.
She hasn't been like at the festival. Like, what is Blake doing?
Okay.
Where is my child?
Overall, yeah, I'm gonna stick by this. I very, very, very much like this. I like, as you saw through my analyzing, like, I love what happened here, and I'm still frustrated with the direction of the plot. I think both can be true. I'm not super confident that any more episodes of this season will be as good as this one, like, at all. But I have renewed faith, I guess, because
when we get rid of the festival at some point, maybe.
Yeah, like, we need this to end immediately, next episode, and then we need to do something. Come on. I
need Team RWBY. I need a whole episode just Team RWBY.
I agree with that. They've been off they've been away for too long.
It's literally RWBY, and like, where's Team RWBY?
So my overall viewpoints are, this episode is incredible. That being said, I hated the episode before. We had like my least and favorite episode back to back, and then the future outlook of the show, from what I can tell, is not that bright. That being said, it's possible that the show sacrificed episode 6 in order to get a cooler future. Like, you have one terrible episode introducing all this exposition, and it's like, okay, that's super unsatisfying because we didn't know any of that before, but now we can run with the cool exposition, so I guess that's okay.
I mean, I disagree, but
like I'm
not
if the show just keeps doing stuff with the maidens, you're just gonna have you will get over it, right? Like shows do that, and
yeah.
You're just gonna it's just gonna be a thing, right? And it's this episode doesn't. Let me be clear on this. This episode doesn't make episode 6 good. Like the episode's still terrible, and I kind of hate what they do with that. Like just because it sets up this one, that doesn't mean that it's like any more successful. They still all the faults that they had in that still can be still could have not happened. Like you could have worked the maidens in earlier. You could have just not had all that terrible dialogue and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we're on the same page on skeptical for the future season.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll see though. I'm more open now, and I'm hoping that at the very least, when we do stuff with the maidens, at least we know now that it'll look cool, So.
Well, I'm at least I am confident that something big is going to happen, and it might be okay, but I'm really expecting to be severely disappointed by what's to come.
I agree. I'm thinking that you'll either get a big death or a big reveal of Osmond or something, and I don't anticipate being satisfied, but at the very least something will happen. At the very least it'll cool. accomplish a plot thing that we're complaining about, so.
Yeah.
Okay. What else did I not talk about? Final thoughts. I honestly don't know how long we've been going because we had multiple calls and drops. But
I actually anticipate this almost being 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we're closer to 2 hours than 1 hour right now.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I will say I am, after talking about it, I am very, very slightly higher on this episode than I was previously, but I still, I don't know. I don't know what it is about this episode that it just rubs me the wrong way.
I can understand seeing this, the narrative devices that they use as not reacting well to it. I think it's a risky element. I just reacted very well to it. So let us know, because this is probably the most Delaney and I have disagreed on an episode in a long while on this. So let us know whether you loved it, whether you thought it was okay, whether you even maybe disliked it. You can comment on YouTube comments if you're watching there. You can comment on overlyanimated.com. Click on this podcast and leave me a comment there, or you can send Tumblr asks, rebog the podcast, stuff like that.
Also, if you've seen Bulletproof Monk, message me.
You did this before with something. You did this exact same thing. You're like, if you saw this, message me.
Somebody messaged me
and
too,
one person messaged you.
That's all I need, Dylan, to prove you wrong. I just need one person. Okay. That's it.
I'm Dylan.
You're no one's going to message you, and one person. That's all I need.
No one's going to message you about this.
If I get one person, it's fine.
I'm Dylan Nice, and that's Delaney Stovall. You can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can find all of our links there. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Did you enjoy this probably 2 hours RWBY in-depth discussion? Probably more in-depth than you'll find most places. Cool. Then you should support us so we can keep doing it. Thanks to our current patrons, Shayna, Mitch, Cordell, Beatrice, Nate, Andy, Jamie, and new patron Rachel, which I didn't tell you about. So start thinking of nicknames for Rachel. I don't know if I know who Rachel is on Tumblr, I'm pretty sure. And I don't know if she listens to RWBY podcast. So I don't know if she'll hear this anyway, but maybe she does.
We can only give her a nickname if we know what she watches.
What Rachel's are in? She watches Rebels and Gravity Falls. I know that for sure. I try and think of those ones. Kana, Fever Mitch, Good University, Beatrix, Strange, Buzz Like Your Mailman, and pending nickname for Rachel.
Right now it can be Darth Rachel, and we'll figure it out.
That's dumb.
It's Rebels. I don't know. I almost said Rebel Rachel.
Come on, get it together. That was bad.
Oh yeah, because okay.
Okay.
Well, none of us are even allowed to nickname. It's only Sam who can nickname people.
I feel like other people have. These are not all.
Mel has given one nickname, and Sam is very mad about it. So,
who was Buzz Lightyear? Was that?
I swear, it might have been me. I don't know.
Either you or Sam. I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway,
again, it's either here. All of these. Sam has been involved in all of the conversations.
Well, you just need to be more creative. That's the solution to that.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, let us know what you thought of this. I'm curious to see you. We're recording this. I have not seen much. Let's put it this way. I have not seen much fan feedback yet as of when this came out. As of when we're recording this. So, I'm not sure if people love this as much as me, but. Let me know. And last thoughts on any of this?
A lot happened.
Yeah, cool. We discussed it all. Hopefully if I said we'll get to this, hopefully I got to all of it, because sometimes I don't actually get to things when I say we'll get to it later.
Well, and I detract a lot because I like to postulate on things.
Postulate. Yep. Yep.
Your vocab word today podcast.
Yeah.
Postulate.
Yep. There you go. We'll be back next week to cover whatever the next episode is, title-wise. I think there is a new one next week, but I'm not sure. I haven't heard confirmation. What was this? This was 7, so we have 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I don't know if there's confirmed 12 or not, but was there 13 last year or was there 12?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I can look this up. But, yeah, so...
I watched them all on Netflix, so I have no idea.
No. So we'll get to... There were 12 last year, so potentially only 5 more episodes. So, yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We will see you next time. Bye!
Bye!